Despite being the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev was mysteriously absent from the UFC's historic White House event, raising serious questions about how recognition is truly decided in modern MMA. How can a champion who dominated Charles Oliveira, knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, and finished Dustin Poirier still be overlooked when the UFC selects fighters to represent the sport on the global stage? Islam Makhachev achieved everything the UFC values: dominance, discipline, and championship legacy. Yet when the spotlight moved to the White House, his name was nowhere to be found. Is it because of his quiet personality, his wrestling-heavy dominance, or the fact that he built his legacy through performance instead of popularity? Or does this situation reveal a deeper truth about the UFC, that sometimes being the best fighter in the world still isn't enough to guarantee the spotlight? And yet, when the UFC prepared its historic White House event, Islam Makhachev's name was missing. No official explanation, no clear answer, just silence. And that silence raised one of the biggest questions in modern MMA. Why would the most dominant champion alive not be selected for one of the biggest symbolic events in UFC history and global sports visibility? Islam Makhachev's journey began in the harsh mountains of Dagestan, where survival shaped character before fame ever existed. Born on October 27, 1991, his father worked as a tomato grower and driver, while his mother ran a small cafe to support the family. Life was not comfortable. Every day was a test of discipline and resilience. Children were raised through hardship, not comfort. Fighting was not a career choice. It was a part of growing up. From a young age, Islam learned pain, responsibility, and mental toughness, forming the foundation that would later create one of the most unstoppable fighters in UFC history. At just 7 years old, Islam began training martial arts, eventually meeting Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, the legendary coach who would change his life forever. Under his guidance, Islam learned combat sambo, wrestling, and the Dagestani philosophy of dominance. He trained in brutal mountain conditions, building strength, endurance, and discipline. He even worked as a security guard while training to support himself, showing his relentless dedication. His life was never about fame or popularity. It was about survival, improvement, and mastery. This mentality would later create a fighter who did not chase attention, but instead chased perfection inside the octagon. Islam's professional MMA career began in 2010, and from the very start, his dominance was undeniable. He won his early fights through knockouts, submissions, and complete control. Opponents could not handle his wrestling pressure. He finished fighters with triangle chokes, arm bars, and brutal positional control. In just 4 years, he built an undefeated record and became one of the most feared prospects outside the UFC. His wrestling multiplied by discipline, crushed resistance. Every opponent faced the same outcome: control, domination, defeat. Even at a young age, Islam showed a level of technical mastery rarely seen in the sport. When Islam entered the UFC in 2015, he immediately proved he belonged among the elite. He won his debut by submission, announcing himself to the world. Although he suffered one shocking knockout loss early in his UFC career, it became the turning point that transformed him into an even more calculated and dangerous fighter. That defeat became his greatest lesson. He rebuilt himself mentally and technically. From that moment forward, Islam evolved into a machine, a fighter who would never allow such vulnerability again. His mindset became focused on perfection, patience, and absolute control inside the cage. After Khabib Nurmagomedov retired, the UFC needed a new dominant force. Islam stepped forward and filled that void. He defeated top contenders like Dan Hooker, Bobby Green, and Drew Dober, proving his dominance repeatedly. But despite his winning streak, the UFC did not immediately push him toward title opportunities. Many believe the reason was simple: he lacked media hype. He did not trash talk. He did not create controversy. He simply won, quietly, efficiently, brutally. In modern MMA, attention creates opportunities, and Islam despite being elite, did not generate the same viral popularity as more outspoken fighters. Everything changed in October 2022. Islam faced Charles Oliveira, the most dangerous submission artist in UFC history. Many doubted him, but Islam showed complete dominance. He dropped Oliveira and submitted him with an arm triangle choke, becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. Even Khabib Nurmagomedov declared him the best fighter in the world. That moment confirmed Islam's arrival at the top. He was no longer a prospect. He was the king, the most dominant force in the lightweight division. And his reign was only beginning. Islam then faced Alexander Volkanovski, the pound-for-pound #1 fighter. Many believe Volkanovski's striking would stop Islam's wrestling, but Islam proved otherwise. He defeated Volkanovski and later knocked him out brutally with a head kick in their rematch. It was one of the most shocking finishes in UFC history. He showed he was not just a wrestler. He was a complete fighter, a dangerous striker, a champion capable of finishing anyone. This victory cemented his legacy as the most dominant fighter of his generation. He continued his dominance by defeating Dustin Poirier, one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. Despite Poirier's elite boxing and experience, Islam controlled the fight and finished him in the final round. He proved he could defeat elite strikers. He proved his wrestling could not be stopped. And he proved once again that he was operating on a completely different level. Elite fighters could challenge him, but they could not defeat him. His reign continued without interruption. Despite all these achievements, Islam faced a different kind of challenge outside the octagon. Popularity. Fighters like Conor McGregor and Sean O'Malley built massive followings through personality and promotion. Islam built his reputation through performance. He did not chase cameras. He did not create drama. His quiet personality and limited social media presence meant he generated less viral attention compared to more outspoken fighters. In the business-driven world of the UFC, popularity often influences opportunities just as much as performance. Nationality also plays a role in global sports perception. Islam proudly represents Dagestan and Russia. He carries his identity with pride. But international politics and cultural differences can influence public perception and promotional decisions. While Islam never allowed politics to affect his performance, external factors beyond the octagon can shape opportunities and visibility. He remained focused on fighting, not politics. His mission was simple: dominate opponents, defend his belt, and prove he was the best fighter in the world regardless of external narratives. Religion is another part of Islam's identity. He represents his faith openly and proudly. His discipline, humility, and loyalty reflect his beliefs. But throughout UFC history, Muslim fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov achieved massive global popularity and respect. Religion alone never stopped greatness from reaching the top. Islam followed the same path. His identity became a symbol of discipline and honor. But his focus remained on performance, not perception. His mission was not to impress the world. It was to conquer it. Islam's fighting style is another factor that shaped his public image. His wrestling dominance neutralizes opponents. He controls fights with precision and patience. He drains opponents mentally and physically before finishing them. While hardcore fans appreciate this technical mastery, casual audiences often prefer chaotic knockouts and dramatic exchanges. Islam's efficiency makes his victories look effortless, but dominance can sometimes be misunderstood. His greatness lies in control, not chaos. By 2024 and 2025, Islam had defended his title multiple times and built one of the most dominant championship reigns in lightweight history. He finished elite fighters, defended his belt repeatedly, and even pursued a second championship in another weight class. His achievements placed him among the greatest fighters in UFC history. His dominance was undeniable. His legacy was secure. He had reached the summit of the sport through discipline, loyalty, and relentless dedication. Islam's story is not just about victories. It is about transformation. From a poor boy in Dagestan to the most dominant fighter in the world. From working as a security guard to becoming a global champion. From living in the shadow of Khabib to creating his own legendary legacy. He proved that greatness is not built through popularity. It is built through discipline, sacrifice, and dominance. Whether selected or ignored, his legacy cannot be denied. Because inside the octagon, Islam Makhachev already proved he belongs at the very top.